Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to just share a little bit about what I know. This is my second time here, and if you've joined us for the first talk, hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about making compost on how we can enrich our garden. So basically, this topic came about from the previous session when we're just talking about gardening in general, and compost is always a very hot topic because people want to know how they can make use of their kitchen waste. So when you can make use of your kitchen waste, you strike several levels of sustainability, you see, so you don't have to waste them. They doesn't go into the landfills. And of course, you can turn them into something useful for your garden, so you don't have to throw it away. Okay. So we're going to talk about how we can enrich our garden. And my name is Legion. So what exactly is compost? So if you look at this here, it's actually a forest. And I'm sure all of us here have been to the jungles, right? Sometimes we go jungle trekking, sometimes we go hiking, or sometimes we just go to the nearest forest reserve just to feel the negative ions and just to feel alive again. No? But we don't realize that the jungle is self-sustainable. Have you ever wondered, does anybody water the jungle? Does anybody fertilize the jungle? No, isn't it? Nobody goes there to water the jungle and to give it fertilizer except for the rain, isn't it? So how come everything in the jungle is so fertile and so rich? You look around the forest floor, you see all these beautiful, very rare plants and very beautiful plants growing everywhere, in the wild, and the trees all grow so big. So how do they grow so big and how do they grow so fertile? So that is because of compost. So compost happens naturally in the jungle because the forest has got a cycle. So in the cycle, what happens is when the tree is unhealthy, so let's say it's too dry or it's too wet or it has some kind of fungus attack or insect attack, it will start to die, it will start to shed its leaves. So once it shed its leaves, you will see that the ground of the jungle is full of all these leaves, and all these will turn to compost on the ground, and so they will all fertilize the ground back again, you see. So actually it's a complete cycle by itself. When the tree is not healthy, it will start to shed leaves so that it can fertilize itself, and over and over and over again, millions of years, you see. So what we do, what human beings are trying to do in compost, is to emulate exactly the same process of breaking down all these the biodegradable materials. So we control the way in which we do, we control the way in which we manage all this organic matter so that it turns into a complete cycle like what happens in the jungle. So how long does it take for a compost to happen? It really depends on the type of compost. So if you're a gardener like me, you would know that all gardeners, we don't call it compost, we call it gardener's gold. It's as good as gold. So if you can make it yourself, imagine if you can make pots and pots of gold in your own garden, in your own backyard. All right. So what exactly is compost? Now, this is where it is very important for us to know the basics. So I want all of you to remember compost as a triangle, because there are so many people who try making compost and it just turns out wrong. So if you don't make compost properly, what you have done is actually decompose. So you imagine when you're in a place where you can smell something bad. That's where the English saying comes from. I can smell a rat. Why do you say when you can smell a rat? It means there's something that's dead and something that is rotting. So when something is rotting, it is decomposing. And this is not what we're trying to make. What we're trying to make is compost, not decompose. So if you don't get the ratio correct, what you're going to have is this rotting material, and it really stinks to high heaven. It's really, really unpleasant. So that is not compost. That is called decompose. All right. So this triangle is important because you must understand compost has to be made up of these three materials. The first material is the dry materials, which is what we call carbon. And it can consist of things like sawdust, dry leaves, grass clippings, even your shredded paper or newspapers, or all your old love letters lah. You're so sick of your old love letters and you're okay lah, I don't want to throw it away, but okay, maybe I just turn them into compost, shred them all up, and then you can put it in the garden, as part of your dry materials. And it also must have wet materials, which is nitrogen. So what are wet materials? They can be your coffee grinds, your tea leaves, your cane bagasse. Cane bagasse basically means all the sugarcane waste, when they grind all the sugarcane water, and then they have all this waste that's left behind, and your kitchen waste. So that provides the energy for it to break down all this carbon that you have. And the third thing you have is activators. So activators can be manure, which means it's cow dung or goat dung or chicken dung, whatever, or it can be enzymes, Some of you may be familiar with the term garbage enzyme, where you make your own enzymes at home. It's a liquid formula where you make with either the fish gut, or you can make with fish with the fruit peels, etc. One day we can even have a talk on enzymes, yeah, or effective microbes. So these three elements, you will see that is in a triangle because it must be in that correct ratio. That's why I put that ratio is important, because you see right at the bottom, dry materials is the biggest bulk. You must have a majority of dry materials, less wet materials, but equally important. And if you have a little bit of activator right on top, it is good. But even if you don't have the activator on top, the wet materials would be good enough to break it down, but it will take longer. Okay, so everything must be in this correct ratio. I remember I went to one community park. They told me, can you just come and help us see what's happening? I went to one shed. They showed me this shed, huge building that they built. So they gather all the dry leaves, for about 3 years. They put all the dry leaves inside, trying to make compost. So they asked me, Lee Jun, what's wrong with this? How come, our compost is not breaking down? The dry leaves have been there for 3 years. It's not breaking down. So the problem is because it's just been left there, and you only have dry materials. So if you don't have wet materials, the nitrogen, which breaks down, it provides food for the bacteria. Basically, compost happens because of bacterial activity. So bacteria will only come to life if there is wet material, because they need the water, the liquid, to survive. So if they don't have water, they will just go dormant. They won't die. Bacteria, they don't die. They just go to sleep. So they will go to sleep for years and years. But suddenly, when you have one drop of water, or when you have got a little bit of water, then you see your dry materials starting to break down. All right, so this is a very important, yeah. So even if you don't remember anything about my talk today, just remember this triangle. And if you want to make good compost, you must have the correct ratio in a triangle shape. All right, so what are the types of compost? Whenever people think of compost, they only think of one type or two types. Actually, there's so many types of compost. There is cold compost, there is hot compost, there is vermicompost, there is pit compost, there is bin or pot compost, and there is this new age compost. So what are they? Let's just go to cold compost first, right? So cold compost are basically, they call it the lazy man's compost lah. So if you're like if you're like me, you and me, we don't have time, right? We live in the city. We are so stretched for time. So what do? Never mind. You can just buy materials and just put them into one corner and then just leave them there. Let the rain wet them for 1 to 2 years. Takes a slow formation, yeah, and over time it will make your soil. Basically, that's what we call cold compost lah. See, so you see the picture here on the left. This is in my garden lah. Yeah, so I just pile all the leaves there because it's no time lah. Just sweep everything, just throw in the corner. Exactly what our grandmother used to do, isn't it? In the olden lives, that's exactly what they did. So they will cut the grass already. They will ask the gardener, don't throw away, let me take care of it myself. So they'll just sweep everything to a corner, and it will break down, and it will make that particular corner very rich. The soil there will become very rich, very fertile. And this one here, because okay lah, I wanted to make it more organized so it doesn't look like so messy here. So okay, if you have got some bricks, you can put it here like that. Yeah, just pile up just pile them up, your bricks, and then you put all your garden waste inside. And in between, you just dig a hole and put your kitchen waste inside. Remember, I was talking about ratio, right? So if you're just gonna throw all your dry leaves inside, it's just gonna end up here like this lah. So if you've got kitchen waste, what you need to do is just to dig a hole. Just dig a hole there, and then you just put them in and cover it with the dry leaves. You have to cover it with dry leaves, otherwise you're going to attract a lot of insects, and you're going to attract rats and monkeys and all the other undesirable animals. Yeah. So if you just look at this picture here on top, I snapped it because it was so interesting. This is actually in a developer's showroom where they planted all this whole row of trees. You see, so all these are all exactly the same trees, but because the gardeners, they were lazy, so they dig a hole here. So every time they cut the grass, they will throw all the grass here. You see, so over about 1 year, you can see these trees are way taller than all the others. They're actually the same tree, but you can see that these two trees are double the size. And nobody actually gave them any fertilizer. They were just fertilized naturally by this compost here. So this is the lazy man's compost. Just throw all your stuff here. Rain will take care of it, and then it becomes very fertile. Hot compost, now this is the one that everybody wants to make. So it's actually a controlled process, okay? And you will have to know how you make hot compost, because, you know, if you don't do it correctly, as I said, you'll find that, okay, why it takes so long? And why is it isn't not working? Because if it takes very long, then basically it's not hot enough. It has turned into cold compost. So if you want to make hot compost, there are several ways of doing it. And as I said, you know, it's a controlled process. It needs to be of a certain size, because you want it to heat up. So your whatever container that you're using for your hot compost must be at least 3 times 3 feet. That means 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide. Because if it's not hot enough, it's not going to control the heat. You know, it becomes cold and you're going to have a cold compost. So what you do is exactly the same. Put your wet materials, put your dry materials, and then you have to keep on mixing it. Maybe once a week you mix it. You know, just like you see, I have one huge, it used to be a water tank. So I just punch holes at the bottom, punch holes at the side, and I've got 3 of these gigantic pots, you know, so I look like a witch here, yeah, stirring my compost pile, you know. So I just put all my garden waste inside, my kitchen waste and etc. So this is a smaller version that I have. I've got 3 of this garbage bins. So garbage bins is exactly the same. You can just punch holes at the bottom, punch holes at the side. So what you do is you would just layer them, just like making lasagna, you know, or the kueh lapis, you know. So you put at the bottom the dry materials first. Then you can put your kitchen waste. After you put your kitchen waste, you cover it with dry materials again. Your dry leaves and your shredded paper and your old newspaper and your old love letters. So put one layer on top. Always remember, you must always cover the kitchen waste and your wet materials. Yeah, otherwise it's going to have smell and it's going to attract animals. So just make it like a lasagna or kueh lapis lah. So layer by layer and layer. So keep on mixing it regularly, and then you will find that it will break down much faster than the cold compost. Cold compost, typically you will find that it takes 1 or 2 years, because you just leave it there. You don't bother about it at all. So 1, 2 years you find that, how come the pile of leaves I left here now gone already, no? Suddenly all went to the ground already, no? So that is cold compost. Whereas for hot compost, if you do it correctly, it breaks down within 2 or 3 months, because it has got heat inside. If you layer them correctly, and it has to be of a certain size, 3 times 3 feet. So that is what we call the critical mass. So once you achieve critical mass, you'll find that actually it's very hot, you know. When you stir them, wow, you can feel the heat coming up, you know, almost like a sauna like that, you see. So like here, at the bottom here, this is one of the projects I used to do at one of the, in Dunkirk, with one of the children's home. It was a children's home. So we taught them how to have they have a garden. So we taught them how to make compost, you know. So when they cut the grass, to put them inside. So that will be the wet material. Then they have a lot of dry grass clippings from outside the gardens. You know, I've become like a garbage collector at some point. I go to my neighbor's house. When they cut their grass, I'll bring their grass home. And then you just layer it inside. After you layer them, you just leave it there. And after a while, the whole thing just goes down, you know, because everything breaks down. At the end of the day, everything breaks down. So that is hot compost. And within 2, 3 months, actually, you can find this kind of material already. All right. So another one is vermicompost. Oh, this one is very fascinating, okay? So when we talk about vermicompost, initially I wasn't familiar with it. So I thought that, okay lah, vermicompost, basically you just catch some worms and put inside. Oh, no. Actually, vermicompost is a very specific kind of composting, and you have to use compost worms, because if you use normal worms, like the ones that you use for fishing, or the kind of normal worms that you find in your garden, no, those are not compost worms. Those are earthworms. So when we do vermicompost, it is a very specific kind of technique where you use this kind of composting worms. So the most typical ones that are available in Malaysia right now are African night crawlers. They are called ANCs, or the red wrigglers, or the tiger worms. So these 3 kind of worms, you can actually buy them. You know, once upon a time I was so crazy, I spent over 10,000 just in this business line. So it's crazy, is it? So it's very fast. It breaks down within 2 to 3 weeks. So what do these worms cost? Some of you are asking. Typically, you can buy them either by per kilo. So per kilo is about 500 ringgit of these worms, but nobody ever buys them in kilo because they're so expensive. So maybe you want to try out, you buy maybe 10 grams of it at 50 ringgit and all that, you see. So some people do that. So you had to take care of these worms, I know. So it's, for me, I sort of dabbled in it for 2 years. After a while, I'm like, I have so much trouble, forget it. So I release all my worms and just put them in the garden. But otherwise, you have to take care of them, otherwise they will die. Then, you know, you can do all kinds of things with it. So there are 3 kinds of fertilizers that you can do with these worms, you see. So vermicast, excuse me, vermicast is their poop lah, basically. So vermicast is if you look for, if you feed them with manure. So if you were to buy, if people tell you that, oh, I'm selling vermicast, that means that what they do is a specific industry, you know. So it's just like you have a chicken dung, you have cow dung. So sometimes they tell you, oh, I'm selling vermicast, and typically vermicast are more expensive than cow dung or goat dung and all that, because they are very, very good material, very high grade fertilizer. So what they do is they will feed the worms with manure. So you feed them either with chicken dung or with the goat dung. So it's like, you know, they eat the dung, but then they will produce more dung. So the poop of the worm is called vermicast. So let's say you cannot get hold of all these dung, you cannot get hold of manure. You feed them with compost material, just like the grass and all that, the one that I showed you just now, all your kitchen waste and your dry materials, your wet materials, then it becomes vermicompost. Yeah, so vermicompost is actually cheaper, a little lower grade quality than vermicast, because what they're eating is actually compost materials, not manure. So sometimes people tell me they might as well you just use the manure itself, right? Because it doesn't make sense, because you had to get hold of manure. Manure also you can use as fertilizer already. So what's the point? So what people do for vermicast is basically what they're doing is they're breeding the worms lah. Because when you put them in manure, you find that these worms they will breed very quickly. You know, they will have eggs. I've seen the eggs before. They are golden in color. So they look like small bits of rice, just with tiny hooks on top. So inside each egg, there'll be 3 baby worms, and they will reproduce themselves very quickly within 6 months. So people breed the worms and they actually sell them. Okay. Or you can make worm juice. So what does it mean by worm juice? Even for your compost also, you can make compost juice, you know. So for example, you have produced your good quality compost already. You can put holes at the bottom of your container. At the bottom, on top, you pour water slowly. The water at the bottom, you can sieve them. So that water you can just spray on your plants. So that also is compost juice. These are all very good materials as natural fertilizers and pest control for your plants as well. Yeah. So this is vermicompost for you. I hope also all of you have had your breakfast. Otherwise it's like, oh my God, mee goreng, now I've got no appetite already. Pig compost also very easy to make. It's exactly the same. In fact, the theories are basically the same. You must have a good combination of wet and dry material. So pit compost is basically for people who have got big gardens or big spaces. So you don't want to have all these Tupperwares and all these container all over the place, so messy, right? So no problem. You just go to your fruit tree, your mango tree, whatever tree, about 3 feet away, you just dig a hole. Yeah, so you dig a hole and then you just leave it there, and you keep putting your compost, your garden waste inside lah. So this is the trick, okay? So this is how it looks like in the second picture here. So you dig a hole already, all your soil, you don't throw away, you know. So like this fella is trying to cut away the soil. I say, no, just leave it there. So when you dig the soil out, you have one pile of soil here. Okay, so you don't have to have all this ratio anymore. You're like, you're so lazy lah. I have to go look for dry leaf. I have to go look for shredded paper. So leceh. So no need. Just dig a hole. So once you dig a hole, you just throw all your kitchen waste on top. So after you throw your kitchen waste on top, just put one tiny layer or one inch of soil on top of it. So just remember the basics is that wet materials must always be covered with either soil, because soil is dry, or with a layer of dry materials, which is all the nitrogens, the carbon that I was talking about, the dry leaves and the shredded paper and the shredded newspaper, or the wood chips, sawdust, all the dry materials. Just put one layer on top, about 1 inch, just because you don't want to expose it to wild animals, etc. So once it's full already, so you just put exactly like lasagna and the kueh lapis that I was talking about. Put your kitchen waste, cover it with either soil, or let's say if you have no soil here, just cover it with dry leaves or with the shredded paper, dry newspaper, whatever. And then once this thing is full already, you dig another hole just beside it. Yeah, so you can continue digging until the whole tree is full, no? And by the time you come back to the same cycle, believe me, you dig this hole again, you found that it's all disappeared already. What happened to all your waste? All disappeared already. It breaks down very fast because inside soil, there's a lot of natural bacteria. So the bacteria inside the soil, it will eat all your kitchen waste and your compostable materials. Yeah, so it will all disappear very, very quickly. Within 1 month or so, actually, you can break down already. Yeah. So this is a pot compost. Okay, pot compost is very interesting. It's almost similar to pig compost, and of course, very suitable for people who are are living in high rise. So you're telling me that, oh, I live in an apartment, Lijin. How to make compost? Can still make compost. Okay, so I don't have a picture here because I have my garden. I'm quite lucky in that sense. So let's say if you are living in a condominium or whatever, you can go to this website here, Green Crusaders. They have introduced a 10-pot system a few years ago. I remember I saw it, I was quite fascinated. So you just have to use big flower pots. Just make sure that your flower pots have got holes at the bottom. And again, just remember, ratio, yeah, and exactly the same. Yeah, just make it like a kueh lapis like that. So the bottom must always be the dry materials. And then after that, you can start layering your kueh lapis lah, or your kitchen waste. Then one layer of either soil or dry materials. Then one layer of kitchen waste. Then again, one layer of soil or dry materials. Then up, all the way until your pot is full. When your pot number 1 is full, then you put maybe a cardboard or something on top of it, close it. Then you go to your second pot and you put all your kitchen waste, then dry material, kitchen waste, dry material, kitchen waste, dry material until it's full. Then you continue, until you fill the 10 pots, and then you come back to your first pot and then you stir it. Yeah, so every 3 pots you stir, lah. You stir your first pot, and you will see that within about 1 month, 2 months, it will all have turned into compostable material. But one warning, please remember this, compost is not meant to be soil. So don't make the mistake of, oh, okay, now the whole pot has turned into compost. Yeah, okay, I'm just going to put your plant straight away inside. Your plant will not survive, because it's too dense. Compost has got these qualities, it's very dense and it tends to retain water. That's the reason why people say compost is a very good fertilizer, because when you use compost as fertilizer, you don't have to put so much of water. So you save water as well because it has water retention abilities. So you use that sparingly. That means you cannot plant the entire pot with just compost alone, your plants will not like it. It's too rich lah. So you have to use it as a fertilizer. Okay, so sometimes people okay, so here's an example of one pots that I use. So I use a garbage bin, just drill holes at the side. You can see the holes here, and drill a lot of holes at the bottom so that the leachate will go out. Yeah, so as you I make a lasagna inside. After a while, you keep stirring it, it will turn into rich compost. So sometimes you say, but so ugly this thing. Then my garden will look like some tong sampah like that. I don't like. Then you put this kind of pots So I have this in my garden as well. So this one I put right behind I tried all kinds of composting, composting techniques just to be able to share this thing with people, to tell you that, okay, what works and what doesn't work. So I can tell you that the bigger the pot it is, it works better. If you're going to use all these tiny pots, it won't work so well. Big pots like that. Why? Because they heat up. So it becomes a little bit like the hot compost I was talking to you about. It will heat up and it will break down very quickly. Yeah, so you have these big pots. You can just go and buy this big tempayan. Underneath there are holes. Make sure there are holes underneath. Otherwise, you're going to have decomposed. It's going to be so smelly and stinky and wet. It must be wet, dry. Yeah, that's the only way your compost will turn out correctly. So this is how you can make compost look pretty lah. So I have all these nice spots and all my compost material just go inside. Then I don't have to bother about them. Yeah, so there are no rats and all that lah, because it's so hard for them to climb inside. These are all quite big lah, the pots I bought in Sungai Buloh. They've been there for about 12 years now. When I first bought them, it was 150 ringgit. I think the price is the same now. So it's definitely worth it lah. I have a few of them scattered throughout my garden, so that I can make compost, and at the same time also, it doesn't look ugly in my garden lah. Okay, so what are the common problems? So look at this one. So just to let you see what compost looks like. Number 1, compost does not smell. Okay, so why is it some people, they make compost, they say, "You're so smelly, Lijin. I don't know how you can tahan. Your garden should be very smelly." No, if you come to my garden, you realize that there is no smell. Even when you touch compost, even if you play with compost, you'll find that it does not smell at all. So if your compost smells, that means it's much too wet already. I remember I went to one farm. It was this place where this guy, there are people who are making the organic tofu fa and all that So he was trying to be sustainable. So he used all his after he used the soya beans. So after he made his tofu fa, he said, okay, I don't want to waste them. So he threw them behind. He said, oh, come and see my compost bin lah. I went there, I wanted to faint. The smell, oh my God. So he just dumped them all into one area, all his soya bean, soya and the soya skin and all that. It was so smelly. So same thing as, let's say you have a lot of fruit, you have a lot of kitchen waste, you just dump them in one corner, it's going to smell to high heaven because it is way too wet. So remember, mix with the dry materials. Remember, I was saying ratio is the most important, all right? It's very, very important, the ratio. You must have dry materials, otherwise your compost will be very, very smelly and very, very wet, yeah? And it will turn out to be like this. In fact, I'm wearing gloves here because, you know, I don't want to get cut by certain things or whatever. But I can tell you there's scientific research that says that people who are in touch with the compost and in touch with soil, it actually helps your skin problems. So people with eczema, people with all kinds of skin problems, even with asthma, with autoimmune conditions, you'll find that if you're in frequent contact with soil, it actually helps your skin conditions and your autoimmune conditions. Yeah, so I don't want to show the scientific papers here because I don't have the time. Today I only got 1 hour. Okay, so if it smells, that means it's way too wet. So solution very simple. Just have the ratio right, and you must include dry materials. Or you attract all the animals. Oh my goodness, you have all the flies coming to your compost. You have all the rats coming, you have all these squirrels and monkeys coming. That means you have not have the right layering. Yeah, so you must always, the top layer must always be dry material. It doesn't matter what compost what compost type that you're doing. All those that I showed you just now, whether you're doing a pit, whether you're doing a pot, whether you're doing a hot, whether you're doing a cold, it must be, the top layer must always be a dry material. Cover all your wet materials when you do your layering, because otherwise the animals will come. Top layer must always be dry, must always be the dry or the carbon, all right, dry materials or carbon. Or you find that, why that my compost is always so wet? That means the area where you're making your compost, let's say if you're making it on the ground, is probably too wet. That means the level is is a little bit lower than the rest of the garden. So it's a waterlogged area. So you probably need to cover it with a plastic sheet, or you change the location of your compost if you find that it's way too wet. You know that it's way too wet when it starts to smell. Compost is not supposed to smell. In fact, if you were to hold it, you find that it really smells very nice. It smells of the earth. Yeah, I actually do that and my children go crazy. They're like, mom, why do you do that? It's so yucky. It's not yucky. It's not yucky, yeah. It just feels exactly like a soil. You're like touching very rich black soil like that. Or if it's too dry. So this one is basically what I told you about the story just now. If you find that, your compost, you leave there for years and years and the pile of leaves doesn't change. It's still a pile of leaves. Why isn't it breaking down? Because it's too dry. So usually during dry weather, I find that my lazy man's compost is not breaking down. So I'm like, you cannot be too lazy. So I will take some water and just pour buckets of water on top of it. Within days, I will see that it will start to sink already. So if it's too dry, your compost also tak jadi lah. It will not happen. Yeah. And mosquitoes. People say, I don't want to make compost. I attract a lot of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes only happen if you have got water puddles. So the mosquito, the lava will turn into the Aedes mosquitoes, right? So the only way to do it is to break them into smaller pieces. So let's say if you've got all these big leaves and all that, you have to chop them up, cut them into smaller pieces so that they will not excuse me, they will not accumulate water. So when they don't accumulate water, you'll find that you don't have mosquito problems. Or you find that, why inside my compost got all these plants coming out, you have all these chili seeds and all that. Why? Because you're throwing kitchen waste inside, isn't it? So it's up to you. Sometimes people say that, I don't like it. Why have all these, weeds and all that coming out, But let's say if you're putting your kitchen waste, you will be surprised. It's like a bonus for you, you put all your kitchen waste inside. Suddenly you find that, hey, I got chili plants coming out of it. Hey, I've got tomato coming out from my compost, you see. So you can look at it either as a problem or you can look at it as a bonus. But if let's say what you have is not the kitchen waste, but you have all the leaves that start to grow back, all your weeds that start to grow back, then okay, it just means that your compost is starting to cool down and all the weeds have started to grow again. So if you don't like them there, you just have to make a bigger pile, because once it's a bigger pile, then it starts to become a hot compost, and the hot compost will kill all the weeds, the seeds of the weeds, so it will all die down. But as I said, if you're going to use kitchen waste, you'll be very happy because you'll find all kinds of very interesting things coming out. Tomatoes coming out, pumpkins. Pumpkins always grow out of compost, I know. So when they start growing, you'll be like, oh, okay, suddenly I have a pumpkin coming out. Suddenly I've got a chili coming out, so that's very nice. Yeah, so that's also, sometimes people think it's a problem, but I will say that sometimes it's a bonus, okay? Or you find that, my compost is full of roots. So if you plant it too near to a tree, yes, you'll find that inside your compost, a lot of roots inside, So what you need to do is just to sift them, basically, because if you plant it too close to a tree, you think the tree is silly. The tree is like, oh, this is a free free food for me. So the tree will start to grow all the roots inside your compost pile, you know. It doesn't matter because when you want to use your compost, what you need to do is just sieve them. So just go through the whole pile. You can just throw away the weeds. You still have a substantial pile of good compost that's left behind. So let's say if you don't want the same thing to happen again, just choose a different location further away from a tree. Otherwise, you can just do like a pit compost. So it's like, okay, I planted a mango tree. So I don't have to put fertilizer. I can just do my compost just beside the mango tree. Then your mango is going to be automatically being fertilized lah, just like what I did. You know, my mango trees outside full of fruits all the time because I just put a few compost just beside it lah just now. You know, I show you the photo just now, right? So you don't even have to fertilize your mango trees and your fruit trees, yeah. Or this problem number 8, this one always people tell me, "Aya, so long lah, Lijin, so leceh lah. I have to wait so long before I can use my compost." That's because your size of the materials may be too big lah. That's the reason why my favorite compost materials are usually grass. So grass, they break down much faster because they are really very small. Yeah. So because the smaller they are, the faster they break down. So let's see here. See, I threw all my bamboo trees here. Ayo, it takes so long, you see. So of course, all the leaves will start to break down very fast, but the sticks and all that will take a very long time. And if you've got bigger leaves like this, all your big leaves will take a much longer time as well. So how can you speed it up? You have to either cut them into smaller pieces, or you can just add more greens. So if you have got a kitchen waste and all that, just make sure that all these fall on the top layer. Yeah, remember the layer, the lasagna style. Just remember that. So just have to add more green material and stir it more often. You'll find that it will break down much faster. Or you find that, yeah, the neighbors complain lah, yeah, why so smelly lah, why so ugly lah, why so many animals lah. That's because your compost is not done carefully. That's why I said maybe you know, you leave it open. If you leave your kitchen waste open, definitely it's going to attract animals. Definitely it's going to be smelly. Definitely it's going to be ugly. So you have not been doing compost properly. So you just have to do it the correct way, just like what I showed you earlier. And you'll find that your neighbors will love you because you'll be able to share a lot of things with them. Yeah. Or you find that, yeah, there's no space lah because I live in an apartment, etc. So, you know, that's the reason why I created Subo Community Gardens way back then, you see, because I feel that I'm very privileged to have a garden. And I would like to share that kind of knowledge, and I like to share my joy with people so that you know that it can be done. So what you can do is either you create a community garden within your area, you know, find a space, find a few neighbors that you can do this together, or, you know, you can do some other things which I'm going to show you later. So all these are common problems, and there are certain ways to be able to solve them. So, you know, I think everybody is able to compost. It's just whether you want to or not. Yeah. So new age composting, this is very important because there's so many new things coming up, you know, and people are always asking me, you know. So for example, bokashi composting. Okay, this is very effective also. It's almost the same style as what I was showing you just now. So what you do is you do not have dry materials. So people go and buy bokashi. What exactly is bokashi? Bokashi basically is actually sawdust lah. So the sawdust is treated. They treat it with bacteria. So after that, then that turns into an activator. So this actually is applicable for people who do not have access to dry material. So for example, you stay in an apartment and all that, you say, where am I supposed to find all these dry leaves like Lijin? I live in a condo one. So okay, never mind, go and get bokashi and you can compost. But for me, I personally feel that if you have to buy something to make compost, I feel that it really defeats the purpose. If you're going to buy bokashi, you know, because you have to purchase that, isn't it? I find that, you know, you might as well just buy the fertilizer yourself lah. Why you want to bother, right? Just find other more easier way to compost. So yeah, up to you. Some people prefer that because they don't have a choice. But for me, I just find it's not practical lah. Tower compost. Now this one I really have to talk about it because I saw a lot of advertisements about it recently, and I was very, very angry because, you know, this is terrible marketing. So this compost tower, yeah, I'm very annoyed with it because I can tell you that it's a very false marketing. Yeah. So they're selling these gigantic PVC pipes, and they're telling people, oh, just put all your compost inside, you know, then after that, you can grow succulents, you can grow beautiful succulents, you can grow your vegetables inside. I can tell you no way is going to work, and this marketing technique is very, very wrong. I actually have half a mind to complain about it, you see, because first and foremost, they didn't even tell you what is the basics of composting. So most people think that, okay, I'm just going to put all my kitchen waste inside lah. I'm going to tell you, number one, it's going to smell like crazy. Number two, it's going to be so wet. You're going to have all your leachate everywhere. It's going to be so yucky. You're going to have a lot of flies. And your plants will never grow, because you know compost is a fertilizer. If you're going to plant things just with compost alone, you no way lah. So all this I can tell you is fake one. So please don't get deceived by this. If you want to put soil inside, I totally agree. Put soil, then you just put compost as fertilizer, fine. But now they are actually selling you to say that, oh, put all your kitchen waste inside. Then you see the picture here, throw all your waste inside, kitchen waste, throw inside, and then you can grow plants. Forget it. You're wasting your money. So you must know the basics lah. Basically, just remember what I told you. The ratio. Very, very important. That's why I put here. First, you must understand the basics of composting, and the knowledge is the key. If you don't have knowledge on what is compost, you're going to get easily cheated by people, okay? And you're going to easily lose your money, or you're going to get all the wrong experiences, and you think that, yeah, so difficult, yeah, so leceh. Actually, it's not true. Compost is actually very easy if you know the basics of it, and the basics is just exactly what I taught you just now. And then this thing also, I also bought this machine before, I just wanted to try the entire spectrum so that you guys know that I've tried it all, and I find that, okay, this one I wasted a lot of money, okay? So these machines nowadays are quite cheap. I bought them 15 years ago. I think I spent almost 2,000 ringgit on it. And again, they do not tell you that, oh, you need to have dry materials and all that. So they just say that, oh, you put your kitchen waste inside, and then it will run 24 hours, electricity very low. And then after about 3-4 days, you open, wow, inside turn into compost already. I think the ones I used back then was different from the ones they have now. So I cannot say for the ones they have now, because I saw a lot of advertisements that, oh, they put all the kitchen waste inside. Within 3 days, it turns into compost already. I cannot talk about the current ones because they do not describe using any dry materials. But back in the day, I still have the machine downstairs anyway. I don't use it anymore. Back in the days, when I bought that silly machine, they don't tell me that it comes with this pellets, So when they sell the machine to you, they also sell it with a bag of pellets, and the stupid pellets are some imported wood chips from America, So the wood chips are so expensive. And the point is that I cannot just put my kitchen waste inside. Every time I put my kitchen waste, I have to put 2 cups of those chips inside, So that is the dry material. So that's the only way in which it can turn into good compost, because ultimately you must have that ratio of wet and dry. So of course back then I was like, okay, I thought that you don't need to have the dry material. So good. Actually it's the same thing. It's still the basics. You must have your dry material as well. Yeah. So I have spent 1,008 for nothing lah. But now I don't know the new ones. Definitely they will use electricity, and then they will still turn your material. So basically, they are using technology to emulate the hot composting that I talked to you about just now. Yeah. But again, the basics will still remain the same one. You must have they use the heat technologically, they use electrical heat to create the heat to burn to burn down all your kitchen waste into this, what do you call that, into fertilizer, into compost material. Okay? So personally, if you ask me, I'm not happy with it because I didn't like the experience, but I don't know about the new ones. I saw from the advertisements, they say that, wow, within 3 days can use it. I'm seriously skeptical. Okay. And after a while, you're like, yeah. Seriously, I don't like having compost in my house. I don't like having soil in my house also. For me, soil should belong outside. So I don't know, maybe for different people, you don't mind that or whatever. Okay, so yep, that's for you lah. Domestic compost machines. And nowadays there's the industrial compost machine as well. I heard that this thing works very well, and there's a lot of Majlis Perbandaran that has been using it. I believe Majlis Perbandaran Shah Alam, Majlis Perbandaran Petaling Jaya, they also have this as well. So they put this in all the shopping malls and stuff like that. So they would take all the waste from the restaurants and all that and put inside. So exactly the same. They will use heat to break down all this waste, and they turn them into compostable materials. So for us, when we want to do, how do we want to do it? So as I said, just understand the basics first. If you have the knowledge of what compost is about, like what I told you, actually it's very simple one. And you have to find out exactly what's your objective. Why do you want to compost? Sometimes you say that, oh, because, I have a lot of kitchen waste. It's like so wasted if I just throw away. But, composting goes, way further than that. Yeah, because it needs some time. Of course, it needs, for example, I'm taking up 1 hour of your time today, to learn about composting first. You have to learn about it, so you need the time. Then you need to experiment to see what works or doesn't work. And it must be a habit for you. So you must do it continuously all the time. I've been doing it for years now. Oh, sorry, not years, decades now. So, you get used to it, and then over time you sort of perfect your skills, then you know, okay, what's right, what's wrong, based on what I had shared with you just now. It took me a lot of years before I know what I know today, and I'm very happy to be sharing with all of you. And sometimes you're like, yeah, I have to touch all this dirt, very girly, But if you think of it differently, as I said, it all starts with a mindset change, yeah. And you must have the support of your family members, because if you don't, seriously, you'll be fighting with everybody, because they're like, for goodness sake, ayo, kitchen waste throw away lah, kitchen waste someone want to put in the garden lah, want to save in Tupperware lah, whatever lah, you. If you don't have the support from your family members, you'll find that it's a very lonely journey, and you might feel that you're going crazy lah, okay? So it's okay. Just find like-minded people like what we have today. We have a very big group today with us. And it's nice to share your tips with each other and to share your plants with each other, because every gardener knows the secret. You feed the soil, not the plant. There's no way you can feed the plant, okay? So what we do with compost basically is that we are feeding the soil, because when you feed the soil, the plant is happy. All right? So that's it for my talk today. Thank you very much. So back to you, Ranjit.
Thank you, Li Jin. Thanks very much for your talk. We have a question here. Can I make compost in covered plastic boxes without holes?
How big is your plastic, your container? Because remember just now I was talking about ratios, right? Ratio is important. So basically you need to achieve critical mass. That means maybe plastic bags, is it? Plastic bag or plastic container, like plastic Tupperware like that. What do you mean? Could you be more detailed? So this is plastic boxes of 2 feet. Is it 2 feet high? 2 feet high and 1 feet wide, is it? Okay, so it's about this high. Yes, actually, yes, it's good enough to make compost. Can. And what you must do is you must do the pot compost that I talked to you about just now. Just make sure that your plastic boxes has got holes at the bottom and holes at the side. So do your lasagna style like what I told you. But if you have got just one box, of course, you find that it's not practical, because very quickly it's going to fill up lah. For example, you eat one watermelon today, already full. So how? One watermelon has got a lot of skin, isn't it? So very quickly it's going to be full already. So you must have at least several pots. That's the reason why Green Crusaders, they say that the best way is to have a 10-pot system. So you have 10 pots, and then you fill up one, very quickly you go to the second one, third one. So as you fill the third and fourth one, now you find that the first one, you go back there, when you stir, it's full when you left it. But then when you come back after, let's say, your 3 pots already, you come back to the first pot, you find that your first pot, how come already become half? Because it's already broken down at the below. It's already disintegrated. So you can actually continue piling up if you want. So 10 pots is the best way. If you're going to have 1, 2 pots, you find that, not practical because very fast they'll fill up, So that is a bit of a problem If no holes, then no way, because it will be too wet. So definitely cannot. You must have holes. So you must poke holes underneath in order to make your compost. In fact, you poke holes at the bottom for the water to come out. You should also poke holes at the side for ventilation.
I have learned to make juice compost from YouTube. Basically, is to throw the kitchen waste or vegetables only into a container with water and wait for 3 months. After that, with the ratio of 1 the juice to 10 the water, and spray to the plants. Is it correct?
That's not compost. That's called enzyme. We call it fruit enzymes. That's fruit enzyme. You're talking about, you're talking more about enzyme. We call it garbage enzyme. So garbage enzyme is not compost, because compost basically it turns into soil. Yeah, it turns back into soil, So exactly what can be composted. In fact, I didn't even touch on what can be composted and what cannot be composted. Basically, compost is soil. So if you say that juice, then it is actually enzyme. So what you have done is you have turned your kitchen waste into a type of enzyme, which can be used as an activator for your compost. So compost actually is soil, just like the picture I show you is soil. So what can be composted are basically anything that is biodegradable can be composted. Even your hair, you can cut your hair, right, and then throw into your compost pile. Even cotton material, you can throw them into compost. Just cut them into small pieces, they will break down faster. But even if it's in big pieces, you put in a garden, it will also compost. Anything that is biodegradable can be composted. So how about meat? People say yes, meat also technically can be composted, but if you have got if you do not cover them well, then they're going to attract a lot of flies, etc. Yeah. So anything like as I said that can break down can be composted basically. People say, oh, orange peels cannot be composted. For me, I think orange peels are fine. As long as it's biodegradable, it can be composted. Yeah. I have all white flies in the garden. Not sure, is it because of the soil or the fertilizer? White flies, meaning the white color ones, right? Yep, I think you're talking about the white fly problem. Basically, it's your soil. Yeah. So how nature works, I mean, sometimes when I tell people that, they say, yeah, this is pseudoscience, but I can tell you it's true. If your soil is not rich, the plant itself will start to release a kind of hormone into the air. So when the hormone is actually a smell, like it goes out into the air, all the insects will come, like all your whiteflies, your mealybugs, etc. Because the plant is telling them, I'm not healthy, just come and eat me, like I want to die. Why? Because it wants to go back to the earth to fertilize the soil. Ultimately, in nature, everything is about the soil. So if your soil is not healthy, your plant will never be healthy. It's just like the body of the earth. Okay. So if you have a lot of white flies or mealybugs or all kinds of all these pests, that means your soil is not healthy. Yeah. So if you can fertilize your soil, eventually you'll find that you have less of these problems. Yeah.
I want to ask you put the triangle there. What is the meaning on the top menu? That means I must go and get some 雞屎 or 牛屎咁樣侵嗰啲 dry leaf and the veggie like that. Is it?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a very good question. That's why a lot of people ask me, where am I supposed to find all the 雞屎, 牛屎? Where am I supposed to find cow dung and goat dung? I'm supposed to buy the cow dung and the chicken dung and put inside. Then what's the point? It defeats the purpose. So it's no need one actually. That's the reason why I have the triangle there. That means if you have it, you just put a little bit only. But if you don't have it, actually kitchen waste is already a good enough activator. So you don't need it actually. That means don't have also, never mind. Stop lock. Yeah, kitchen waste is good enough. So it's actually very good that you go to the pasar nearby your house to take back all these materials. But make sure you have an equal amount of the dry material, because remember my this thing or not? See, that's why you see you say you bring back all the kitchen waste, right? This one is very important. See, remember the triangle. All right. So this one is important. Okay. So this one. So the one that you say you bring back from kitchen waste, right? Okay. Can you see my slide again? Yeah. Yes. So you see, this is wet material. So if you're going to go to the pasar, like for me last time, at one point I was so gila, I went to the Pasar Malam at night and take back all these gigantic bags of the cane bagas, because I so wasted all these cane waste, sugar cane waste they throw away, They are very, very good, but they are wet materials. So your wet material is a smaller portion compared to your dry material. You see, dry material is more than wet material. So dry material should actually be 70%. Wet material is only 30%. So if you're going to take back all this amount from the pasar, you better make sure you got a bigger amount of the dry material. Just go to your neighbor's house whenever they collect the leaves. When the MPSJ, MPPJ collect the dry leaves, wow, you go and take back, already packed nicely in plastic bag for you already. Very easy. Oh?
Okay. Yeah. One more thing I asked, about the top, the manual, I cannot get cow dung and what. I can get those bucket, those people who sell fish, they cut the stomach. Can I use that one to make very smelly? That one, a lot of flies come, with that one fish.
That is, you mean the fish skin, is it? The fish skin and the fish guts and all that, Yeah, all those are all wet material. Wet material, yeah. So your ratio, you must always remember the wet material is a smaller amount compared to the dry material. Dry material is the bigger amount. Yes, otherwise it's going to be very smelly lah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. No problem. If you stir it, no minimum duration. Just make sure that it's well mixed lah. So of course, like you saw my gigantic tong just now, right? I am tired, no, I tell you. So I just dig whatever I can. After that, I get too tired. Okay, never mind lah. Because I'm a lazy man, So if you don't stir it, it will still break down. It doesn't mean that your compost tak jadi. As long as your ratio is correct, your ratio will still jadi. It will turn into into the lazy man compost, which is your cold compost. It just takes a longer time. Yeah. So if you don't stir, it will still happen. It's just that it takes longer lah. It just won't happen as fast as you want it to. So some people, they are all like impatient. It's like, hey, but I want to use it fast. If I have to wait so long, I want to go and buy I might as well just buy fertilizer lah. But that means you don't understand the concept lah. See, so if you stir it and all that, it just makes it faster. If you don't stir it also, it will still happen one. Don't worry. Yeah, just takes a bit longer lah. Collect the leachate from my compost bin and leave it out in the sun to deaerize before using them. Is this harmful for plants? No. The leachate actually is very good for your plants. Just make sure that you have them well diluted, because they are very, very potent. Yeah, because I remember my friend also did that before. She collected all the leachate, then she poured it on the plants, and then tomorrow all the plants all died already, because it's very potent. It's a very powerful fertilizer. You must have them well diluted. So when you have usually it's a 1 to 10 so let's say you have a big those 1.5 liters, those drinks or whatever, right? So you just put 10% of that whatever leachate or enzyme, whatever. The rest of it must be water. If it's not well diluted, your plants will all die. Bye-bye. Because for example, it's like you just stuffing one big bottle of supplements lah. So it's like, wow, over supplement already, by tomorrow you end up in hospital. Okay, so not advisable. Everything must be diluted very well. Okay.
Can we cover the compost bins, and when do we start to stir the compost?
Yep, that's a very good question. Should you cover it? Yes. If let's say you are using a container, I would advise you to cover it. So for me, normally, if I'm using a container, of course I'll cover it lah. But for my big tongs and the bigger ones, I do not cover it because it's not practical to cover. So you can leave it open. But if let's say you're using smaller ones, yes, you can cover them if you want. But you must have holes in them for ventilation. Yeah, because as I said, the compost happens because of bacterial activity. It's the bacteria that is eating all your materials, all your biodegradable materials. So if you're going to cover it airtight, it's going to become a vacuum inside. So if it becomes a vacuum, your bacteria is unable to breathe and they will just go dormant or they will die lah. Yeah? So then your compost will not happen lah. Okay. So even if you want to cover it lightly. Don't make it silly tight like that. Make it vacuum pack. That's it lah. It will not happen now. Okay, it's gonna all break down inside. It's gonna be all smelly inside. Yeah, so you can cover it, but not airtight. Yeah, and when do we stir it? Typically when it's full. So let's say now you're using a pot. So once it's full already, then you leave it for maybe about 1 week. When you come back to it, you find that, it's become dry. Even whatever material you put, it's become dry. Then you can stir it. So if it's like every now and then you stir, every now and then you stir, it doesn't make any sense, right? So what you do is, whatever that you're using, okay, so you fill it layer by layer, just like I said, lasagna style. So once it's full, leave it for 1 week to rest. Come back to it 1 week later, then you stir. You'll find that when you stir, the whole thing will go down. So once it go down, that means the breakdown process has already started. So it will go down. You can choose whether you want to top it up some more, or you can just leave it there and then it will all break down. Once it breaks down, so when you fill your pot, is this full, at the end of the day, the compost that you get is only this much. So for me, I'm a lazy man. So, we are busy people, right? So I practice the lazy man compost, like that. I have that big flower pot, not flower pot, the big tempayan like that in my garden, isn't it? I hardly ever touch it for years. So what I do is I will keep on stuffing stuff inside because I'm not in a hurry to use compost. I've got plenty. So what I do is I will just keep putting my kitchen waste inside. Then I will just put one layer of dry leaves or whatever. Then continue putting. Then after about maybe every few months when I'm free, I will just stir it. Then it will crash. It will crash down. So once it collapses, I keep on continuing to put it. It takes me, I think, about maybe 1 year, 2 years before I can get even half of it, because everything breaks down. Once they break down, they turn into soil. So soil, is tiny, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, it won't be able to, you really will see very little of it lah, because everything, as they say, from what do you call it now, from dust to dust, everything goes back to dust lah. Yeah, so everything will all fall back into pieces. Yeah, so that's one question. I think I saw one question just now about, can we use styrofoam boxes? I have tried it before. I like the size because they are big, but I find that it's not conducive when you want to stir, because when you stir you tend to hit against the sides of the styrofoam box and it breaks. So I don't like that lah. So I think styrofoam boxes, I know some people use styrofoam boxes as planting material, planting pots, containers. So you put soil inside and you can grow your spring onions and you can grow plants inside. I think that's fine. But to use it as a compost pot, I think it's not conducive, because I tried it before lah. You will hit against the side of your compost and your pot will break. So not advisable to use a compost pot. But if you use those old, if you can find those old Toyogo boxes that people throw away, Toyogo boxes can, because they won't break. Yeah, styrofoam, I think not very conducive. Yeah.
I place my kitchen waste and dry materials in a box 2 feet wide, 3 feet long, and 1 foot high. I sun dry the materials during the day and then cover it to avoid any rain. Do I need to pour any water from time to time to speed up the process?
If you're using kitchen waste inside, you actually don't need any water because kitchen waste is already wet enough. It's only when you have a whole pile of dry leaves or dry materials, then yes, you need to pour water. But I think for you, the easiest way to speed it up is if you keep stirring it often. Yeah, stir it. Once you stir it already, just put one more layer of dry materials on top. So I think after about 3-4 weeks, you will see that the entire thing would become quite dry already. So you don't really need to water it because kitchen waste by itself is already very wet.
Another question subsequent to that is for the height of the container. Is it important for pot compost?
Yes, very important. That's the reason in my earlier talk I said you must have 3 times 3 times 3. That's the ideal. So 3 feet is ideal actually. So I have one photo just now. Like some people will say that, oh, I don't have containers and all that. That's the reason if I said if you don't have the space, I seriously feel that it's very good for you to be able to start what do you call it now? Community garden, you see. So if you don't have big pots and all that, this is one which I did in a lot of places. Take a look at this one here. So I just go to the hardware shop and buy this wire mesh. So this wire mesh, they have to be at least about 2 feet times 2 feet in diameter. So 2 feet in diameter. So it's tall enough, then you just put everything inside. I've used this wire mesh in lots and lots of places and they are very effective. So when you want to stir, I don't have to stir it like what these girls are doing because this place is quite small. They don't have enough waste. So if let's say you have a community garden and you have a lot of waste from everybody, isn't it? You keep piling up very fast. So once it's full already, you just leave it for a bit. What you do is you just have to uncut the whole wire mesh, So 2 people from 2 sides, or even if yourself also, you just have to lift the entire mesh, put it beside it. Then you just have to scoop everything into the new location again. So that's the way you stir it rather than stir like what she's doing. Yeah, which you not necessary for you to stir that way. You can just scoop the whole thing and go. Basically, you just want to mess it up, so it doesn't necessarily have to use a stick to stir. It just depends on what is the container that you're using. Yeah. I love listening to gardening talk. Okay, I started to plant when I was doing my chemotherapy. It gives me calmness. Yes. It really calms you down because why do you think people call it Mother Earth? Because that's where it all comes from, isn't it? Yeah, they call it Mother Earth because it's the mother lah, basically. Yeah. So you will find that when you are gardening, it really helps you to calm down. And all the more if you start to see results of whatever you're planting, like Ranjit, when she start eating her spring onions, she's so happy, isn't it? Yeah, because when you start to see results. But one thing about plant parenthood, sometimes people get depressed, It's like, I thought your sick gardening supposed to make me feel calm, supposed to make me feel happy, but I feel so depressed. Everything I plant all die one, yeah, make me depressed, That means you're not planting it correctly, yeah. So basically, it's so easy now, It wasn't this easy in my time, because in those days, we basically had to learn everything trial and error, Now everything is available on Facebook. So it's so easy. What you need to do is just to go to Facebook, join all the gardening groups. Then from there you can read, all the things that they talk about. They have all this, what do you call it now? They have all this sharing. They will tell you this person did this person say, oh, my garden is full of F-X, what do you do? So people will give all kinds of advice. How you can make your neem juice how you can make your soap water and stuff like that. So yeah, some of them they work, some of them they don't work. So don't take everything online as the gospel truth because every garden is different. Sometimes it works on your garden, it doesn't work on my garden. Sometimes it works on my garden, but it doesn't work on your garden. Yeah. So just have trial and error because every garden is different, you see, because of the soil. Some soil is more acidic, some soil is more alkaline. So it really depends on each person. Like for some people, they say that, oh, I just cannot grow chili. Everything else grows fine. For me, my chilies grow in the wild, But other things where I struggle with it. Yeah. So I don't know. It's in the soil. Some reason that my soil is suitable for it. Yeah.
I want to find out. The plants I plant, I don't know why. It looks very healthy and the leaves are very, very big, especially those lady fingers, all this. The stem also very big. but it just doesn't bloom. Even my brinjal also, the leaves are very big. And no brinjal, you know why? I want to know why. Is it a lack of what? I don't know.
It lacks potassium. That's why, because you know sometimes when you buy fertilizer, isn't it? So the fertilizer they will put there NPK. So NPK stands for nitrogen, potash, potassium. So basically, any form of gardening, any form of soil, these are the three key components that the soil needs for healthy growth. Nitrogen. Nitrogen is basically for the green leaves. So it helps your plant to grow healthy shoots and healthy leaves. Potash is also for the leaves, so that they can perform photosynthesis and be able to create chlorophyll for the plant. Whereas for potash, for potassium, so it's nitrogen, potash, and potassium. Yeah, potassium helps in the flowering and the fruiting process. That means you have the same problem like me. Your garden is full of nitrogen. Yeah, so the Malays, they actually have a term for it. They call it mabuk daun. So you plant something that's full of leaves, very fat, very, very bushy. But all leaves. Yeah, it's all leaves only, no flowers and no fruit. What's a flower first? Flower, then only fruit, right? That means it doesn't have enough potassium. Yeah.
So what is potassium? What is potassium? Must go outside and buy the fertilizer. Tell them that I need potassium like that. Special.
No lah. You know what? When you go out there, they always have if you want to buy fertilizer, the fertilizer that is those colorful one. Then they put there. They say it's bunga. They call it baja bunga, baja buah. So if you see that they put baja bunga, baja buah, basically it just means that it's higher potassium. So you see, okay, the next time you look at fertilizers, you just look at every fertilizer packet, the commercial ones, they will put there NPK. Yeah, so usually got ratio like N30. So it's usually N30, P30, K30. So this means that their nitrogen, potash, potassium is 30, 30, 30. The ratio is equal. But if let's say you want to have, for example, you're planting things that are more green one, for example, you want to put it into your, let's say for your bayam, spinach your sawi and your serai, your things that is just leafy vegetables, then you get something that has got higher N one, nitrogen, because nitrogen is for leaf growth. Because like your leafy vegetables, so you buy something with a higher N. That means maybe your N60, P10, K10. Whereas if you want if you're planting something that has got flowers and fruits, like for example your brinjals and your chilies and your what you call it now, your lady's finger, then you should buy something that has got a higher potassium. So your N probably would be 20, and then your potash is 20, and then your potassium is maybe 60. Yeah, so the ratio will be there, So this is when you see that. Or there's a home remedy, for potash, which I've tried it before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't work. Actually, banana skin works very well as a potassium, to boost flowering and fruiting. So what you do is there are two ways of doing it, Either you can just bury your banana leaves, use banana peels. Yeah, either you just bury your banana peel as a pit in your soil, or you can you can use the banana peel as a fertilizer. You use the liquid fertilizer like what just now somebody was sharing. Just have a bucket of water, put the banana peels inside. Within 3-4 days, you can use it, dilute it, and just spray on your plants. You find it is very high in potassium, so that helps for banana peels. Yeah. So next time you eat banana, don't throw away the peels. Yeah.
Yes, I tried. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is eggshell a good fertilizer? Yes, eggshell is calcium, correct or not? The problem with eggshell is that it takes a long time to break down. So like my family, as I said, it was very hard to get my family members involved. So they also just throw the eggshell, in like that, half like that. So, you just throw the eggshell like that, it will actually stay like that for years, if you don't break them down. So you have to crush them. Yeah, I know a lot of people who are very rajin, they go and put in the blender, turn them into powder and all that. Wow, very hardworking. For me, I don't have the time, as I said, we are working people, so we just do lazy man's compost. What I do is I will just crush them only. I'll just crush them up. I'll just put them all over the garden. And yes, you're right. It's a very good fertilizer because it adds calcium to your soil. Yeah, that's the reason why also some people say that, hey, why didn't you do hydroponic lah? Since you like gardening so much, hydroponic, since you say you got no time, no need to water. I'll say sorry, but hydroponic doesn't have the equal amount of nutrients. It doesn't have the micronutrients that is available in soil. Yeah, so it's not the same. And even when you cook hydroponic vegetables, you notice that if you cook the soup too long or you over fry it, everything they just melt, because it's grown from water. Okay, and we come from soil, and we are made of soil, typically, so you must eat something that comes from the soil, because inside the soil, we know that inside soil there are all these major nutrients, all your zinc and your magnesium and your what do you call it, vitamins and all that, minerals. All this is available in soil, but there are also micronutrients that's available in soil, which is not available when you are going to use planting through hydroponics. So for me, it's still soil, I'm not a hydroponic person. Okay. Wait, there was one just now about the eggshell. Yeah, I hope that answers your question about eggshell. How to get higher nitrogen content in my compost? Higher nitrogen content basically means in your compost. What do you mean by in your compost? Because nitrogen basically is from wet material. So if you were to go back to what I showed in my slide just now, okay, hang on. Okay, share my slide just now. Okay, nitrogen basically, ayo, why is it so small like that? What happened?
We can see.
You can see. Okay, now is it the full screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, nitrogen basically is the wet materials. So your kitchen waste is already nitrogen. So just remember, wet materials is nitrogen. Carbon is dry materials. So dry materials will be sawdust and all that, and it must be the bigger amount, compared to wet materials is a smaller amount. So your kitchen waste is already nitrogen. And the coffee grinds, your tea leaves, your cane bagasse, all the wet stuff is basically nitrogen. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is what do you mean by add more nitrogen to your compost or to your soil? If you mean in your compost, then basically you just need to have a bigger percentage of kitchen waste, etc. But your percentage of kitchen waste, etc., your wet materials must always be less than your dry materials. Otherwise, it's going to smell. It's going to be wet. It's going to be a bit yucky, and you don't want it to be yucky. Good compost should be like this one. Yeah, in fact, this one is, I would say, at 70% breakdown, not completely broken down. I have others which is 100% broken down. It turns entirely back into soil. Yeah, good compost. It just looks like soil, like this one here. You see, this picture, I don't know whether you can see very well. It's turned back entirely into soil with very little big pieces. Everything is just like turns back into good sand. This dark black color, that's good quality compost for you lah. Okay.
I air fry my banana peels.
Oh, banana peel. Okay. You fry your banana peels, is it?
Air fry.
Oh, you air fry your banana peels and wait,
grind them in powder.
Oh yeah, you dry them into powder. Fine, no problem. If you want to take that kind of trouble, no problem. You can air fry them if you like. Even if you don't air fry them, also is the same, because basically you just want the calcium that's in the eggshell. Yeah, so even if you don't air fry them, it's exactly the same effect. So some people, they go and wash the eggshell. Wow, go and wash first lah. Then you air fry lah or stir fry lah. Or not stir fry, sorry. They fry over a pan until it's dry and all that. Honestly, the bacteria doesn't care. Yeah, once it goes into the soil, the bacteria doesn't care that, okay, it's the air fry dry leaves that you're giving me, is it's been treated or whatever. Once it goes into the soil, seriously, they don't care lah. The bacteria, they just eat whatever that's inside lah.
Is boiled eggshells good fertilizer too?
Yes, because when you boil the eggshell, actually it does not matter whether you boil the eggshell or you don't boil the eggshell, because it's the calcium. The calcium doesn't break down. Calcium is a very stable mineral, and it will not break down so easily. So after you boil them or before you boil them, it's the same. And whether you clean them or whether you don't clean them, it's still the same. Whether you air fry them or whether you bake them does not matter. you know, the bacteria does not mind at all, because for them it all has to turn back into soil. So for them, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Can we add coffee powder straight into the soil as fertilizer, or dilute it water then add to the soil? Personally, I like to put coffee grinds right into the soil. Yeah, it's very strange, because yesterday only I just read a paper that says that there was this researcher from some, I can't remember, from Netherlands or something. So she said she did a research on using coffee grinds directly on the soil. She says that from her research, she said that, you know, the plant that she used coffee grinds doesn't grow so well. But I personally find that it's very good. But maybe again, my soil and her soil is probably different now, you know, so I don't know. So if you were to ask me, I would say yes, but everything in moderation. So don't put so much, like, you know, if you're going to put too much. I remember one of my friends, you know, she put a whole layer of coffee grinds on her pot, in her pot, and after a while the whole thing caked up, you know. So the plants all started to become yellow lah, because, you know, it started to cake up. So it stopped the water. When she put water on the pot, the water is unable to go down to the roots, you know. So her plants became very unhealthy. So if you're going to put coffee powder, coffee grinds, and tea grinds in your pot, I would say that, you know, the good thing is you put them ready. After 1 week later, mix them into the soil. Yeah, so don't leave them just lying on top of the soil like that, because it doesn't break down as well. So after 1 week, just stir them into the soil. So it becomes part of the soil. It breaks down much faster. Then yes. So you don't have to add water lah, dilute water, or no need lah, all this. Actually, composting is very simple one. Don't complicate matters, because, you know, the more complicated it becomes, the more you are put off by it, because you think that, yeah, so leceh lah, you know, so much of effort required. It's very little effort required one. You just have to keep things just keep it to the basic lah. Yeah, so don't have to add on so many additional things like air fry lah, and then you know, you must wash the eggshell first lah. No need one. The bacteria doesn't mind. Yeah. Okay. May I know where should I place my worm bin? Under the shade in the garden or in the porch area? Under the shade in the garden is the best, because actually, to be honest with you, if they are not happy with whatever you're feeding them, they might run away. I know. So if you put them in the porch, it's happened to me before. Last time, I put it in my kitchen. I got a heart attack. You know, now I tell you, in the middle of the night, I came downstairs for a drink, and they were all over the floor in my kitchen. Ayo, scary, man. So if they're not happy with whatever you're feeding them, because, you know, you tend to feed kitchen waste, right? Most people, when they invest in a worm bin, they think that, oh, I want to feed them with my kitchen waste. So kitchen waste, it creates heat. So when they are decomposing, when they are breaking down, then your worm bin might become hot. So when it becomes hot, your worms are like, oh, it's like hell for them, you know, they will escape. So if you put it in the garden, I would say it's more humane, because if they're not happy with the worm bin, they can run away and they can still survive. So the one in my kitchen, if I didn't discover them, of course they will all be dead lah. But because I discovered them, of course I scoop them all, put them back inside the bin, and pour water inside my kitchen waste, so that it was nice and cool and they survive. But after that, I decided not a good idea to put in a cemented area, because if the worms escape, then they will die. But if you put it in the garden, later on I transfer all my worms, everything to the garden, because if they escape, at least they will still survive, and at some point in time you will still be able to catch them. Yeah. It also is important, KF, what worms you're using. If you're using ANC is more resistant to heat. So even if, let's say, your bin heats up, they probably will not run away so much. But if you're using tiger and the red wrigglers, they don't like heat one, no. So if, let's say, you put in a car also, for example, because I bought it that time, even by the time the guy brought it to me, he was traveling about 30 minutes in the car. It was in a midday. The worms are all trying to escape already, you know, so they don't like heat at all. So under the garden, in the garden area, under the trees, all that is nice and cool. They will like it better lah. Yeah, KF, I hope that answers your question. Depends on what worms you have also. All right. Yours are ANC is right. Okay, you turn on the lights at night. Yeah, because they think it's the morning. So if you turn on the lights, they think that it's daytime. So it's like, okay, daytime is going to be hot outside. So I wouldn't be out there and, you know, expose myself to the heat. So they will hide inside the bin lah. So yeah, so they probably won't run away if it's light outside, you see, because they go by their skin is like what do they call it now? They call it photosensitive. Yeah, so they're photosensitive. So anything that is bright and light, they assume that it's the daytime. Yeah, so they will run away lah. So that's the reason why they are burrowers, right? They live under the ground. One thing about ANCs, ANCs, they live on the surface, they are not burrowers. They will not go deep inside the soil, and they won't dig inside whatever like your soil or your compost or whatever. They all live just on the surface one, Yeah. So I'm not sure whether you already harvested the vermicast from your ANCs, either vermicast or vermicompost, yeah, you find it's very interesting because they look exactly like chocolate rice. Yeah, they will be on the surface. So they will create. So okay, for example, this is the soil. This is your compost, whatever your garden stuff and all that. So the ANCs, when they produce their waste, it will be on the layer. Yeah, so on the layer, you'll find all this chocolate rice on top. They look exactly like chocolate rice. That's why now I cannot eat chocolate rice anymore because I think of my worms. I'm like, okay, this is worm poop. I very girly to eat them anymore. Yeah. So they look exactly like chocolate rice. So when you sort out the chocolate rice, you just have to scoop the top part. Now that is your vermicast. Very expensive, So I don't know the price now, but previously we used to sell vermicast at about anything between 8 ringgit to 15 ringgit per kilo. Yeah. Yep, you cover them with a wet t-shirt. Yes, yeah, they like moist. Yeah, so worms, they like very moist areas one because, as I said, their skin is very sensitive, so they have to be kept very damp lah. Otherwise, if they dry out, then they will run away. They don't like the environment. They will run away. Yeah. Okay, I hope that answers your question. In fact, that's how I want to catch them because right now they are all over my garden now, isn't it? Because I said I got a bit malas to keep them in the pots and all that. So I just let them out in the wild. So if I want to catch them, what I do is I will just take water, So if I have a wet t-shirt on the ground, and I keep that t-shirt or cloth or whatever wet continuously in the ground, they are surface worms. They will start appearing. So all the wet areas, I will find my ANCs hiding there. So I just have to lift the cloth. Okay, then I can catch. If let's say, some friends are requesting for it, I will just catch a few of these ANCs and give to my friends lah. That's the thing. And be careful when you take this one I was telling you about the casting, right? So if you cover with a t-shirt, you'll find that all these castings, and the castings are drier, the castings are not wet one. They're nice and dry, just like chocolate rice lah. So in the chocolate rice, when you salt that time, be careful. You might find these tiny little golden beads, These are actually their eggs. Yeah, so inside the eggs, typically they will start laying eggs when they're mature enough in about 50 days, very fast. So inside each egg, there'll be 3 little babies, and they reproduce very fast. If they're happy with the surroundings, they're all, yeah. Yeah, that's right. The chocolate bits, right? So now you cannot eat chocolate anymore, right? So girly, right? They do just like this. Yep, that's right. Okay. Yep. Very interesting to catch them back. Yeah. Chocolate rice, not the chocolate bits. Yeah. The chocolate rice that you put on the ice cream and your cakes and all that, right? Yeah, I can't eat that anymore because it reminds me of my worm poop lah. Yeah. Yeah, this is a very good question here. If the ground is hard, how to correct it before planting? Yes, there are many reasons why the ground is hard. It's the composition of the soil. And actually, the easiest way is to compose. You'll be surprised. It's the easiest way to compose. Yeah, the easiest way to soften earth, to make it fertile again, is by using compost. Why? Because remember just now I was saying that compost has got water retention properties. So when you add compost into the soil, you'll find that your soil is more fluffy and it will retain water better. So when it retains water, it does not harden up and it doesn't turn into a piece of cake that quickly if you forget to water or whatever, you see. So for very hard ground, for example, let's say people shift to a new house, right? You go to a new house, you find that all the soil is, wow, this very hard, usually is clay. Yeah, so what do you do with all this clay? So you can just go and collect all these materials, all the organic material from around you, just throw them on the ground and just let them break down into the soil. You find that over time, your entire garden, naturally, the soil will be more rich and more fluffy. So it will be very conducive for planting, for hard ground. Yeah. So you have to have more organic matter to turn your soil into fertile soil. And it wouldn't be hard like that. It's hard because it's dry, basically. Yeah. So if it gets any drier, then they'll turn back into dust. Yeah. So it just means that they're caked together. That means it's a clayish soil. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
Li Jin, I think we spent almost 2 hours because it was so interesting to hear you talk, and everybody had so many questions. And today we learned so many things. I mean, ANC, I only knew ANC as two things. One was African National Congress, and the other one was what they have, the neutrophils measurement in the blood when we have chemotherapy. But this was a new one. This is the African
Night crawlers. They're big. They're so big like that, you know.
African
As
night.
big as a chopstick one, you know. Oh gosh. And they're very pretty. They're slightly purplish in color, lah, yeah.
Yeah, the only experience I have in my life about these things is earthworms that we used to see outside our house, you know, when we were children, and I think that they actually contributed a great deal to the environment, to the plants, and to nature.
Yes.
And thank you, Lee Jin. Thank you very much for the talk, and thank you to everybody who's been listening.